I wanted to save him for the good stuff. It's Craig Kilborn. And I don't believe you're in Minneapolis yet. It looks like you're still LA based in your den of
I'm in the
intrigue.
mahogany panel den with the Conquistador lamp. And I guess the obvious question I have for you is, so I'll be out there in Minneapolis for games 3 and 4. The Timberwolves have made me, I don't know if you can see this. This is Timberwolves. I guess I'm the sixth man. And then on the back is Lord Kilby. Now, I don't wear jerseys to a game, so I won't be wearing that to the game. Is that correct, Ryan?
You can't wear it. Not you.
Right.
I would never expect that to happen.
I'm thinking about wearing it in warm-ups and then taking it off and putting on a blazer for the first quarter and the second, third, and fourth.
There's just too many great items that I imagine you still have in your closet that you had to invest in. Like I look at my closet and I go, what have you done over the years? You're like, well, when you're on television and entertaining a nation 5 days a week, you can justify it, but there's still a lot of clothes there, stuff I don't want to get rid of, and I just don't wear anymore. I imagine you have the same struggle.
Yeah, when you work in television. I remember John Tesh was hosting Entertainment Tonight for years, and he says, I haven't paid for a haircut in 20 years. He was so proud of that. But we haven't paid for clothes or blazers. You and I, we get the free stuff, right? The shirts?
No, I paid for everything. I don't know. I don't think.
You didn't have a wardrobe stylist at ESPN?
Not for the radio simulcast. I don't think, although the clothing budget wasn't exactly, I think it's a nice thing to have had.
Yes.
But when there were that many anchors, I think the men's budget was like, you can maybe get one good suit and a belt out of the deal. I'm sure at the CBS level, it's somewhat of a larger clothing allowance.
Yeah. There's more than allowance. I don't pay for anything. They have to pay for all the suits, all the pants, all the loafers. It's just it's the only reason I got into late night was for the wardrobe stylist that comes with the job.
I don't blame you. Okay, so I watched that first 20. I already talked about it in the open today. The first 24 minutes of what we saw defensively from your team, I wanted to share it with somebody. I wanted someone to watch. I wanted a new person who had never watched basketball. I wanted them to come to my house. I want to go, you need to see what this is like. What was that like for you?
Well, Finchie called it the best defensive performance of the season. It's hard for people to grasp, like the fans in Minnesota are stunned. And one of the local reporters, a friend of mine named Judd Zolgad, said, hey, guys, don't try to comprehend it. I was there for the 87-91 Twins. They're a good team. You can process this later. Just enjoy the ride. But, Ryan, we were the number one defensive team all year. We did play the Nuggets tough last year, even though we lost 4-1. They said we played them the best. And last year, Rudy was not as mobile as he is this year, and Cat missed a lot of games. He also missed games this year. But I think you already know this, but besides Rudy, you've got these Jaden McDaniels just plays hard all the time. That's why he fouls out sometimes. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's like a mini version of Jaden McDaniels. And I could not have predicted last night, though. I guess they just rallied because Rudy couldn't make the game. And I have a comment on that in a bit, but it was just a bizarre game. And Ryan, the refs weren't calling anything. So if you're going to allow us to play physical, I mean, this is right in our wheelhouse to body up on people. So that was a stunning game. I mean, was Jamal Murray frustrated?
A bit, but like the one play that I talked about when it just, I never watch a game and go, this thing's over that early. I guess, like, especially against Denver. Okay. Like Denver always figures it out. Like even when Denver's struggling, they're like, okay, they'll figure this out. When Jamal got doubled, when he brought the ball over half court against Alexander Walker and Jaden. Yep. And, it was physical, but he wasn't fouled. There was no egregious foul. Sometimes I think basketball players think like, you're never supposed to feel another body part from a defender at any point. Like you're going to get bumped. There's going to be times where you reach in, and I just felt like in that moment, I go, I think this game is over. I think it's over. And it was 33-20.
Yeah. And I was concerned on that particular play because I've seen this happen where we trap somebody and you can tell the offensive player is frustrated. And then as the seconds tick, then we start reaching and then we foul and they get bailed out. Thank God they didn't hack or reach or come down on anybody. But yeah, it's we're really good on D. And the thing I've seen in the past is I've seen Jaden drape, all over people. And the guy still scores because Brandon Ingram can score. And I saw Naw last year play against Jamal Murray because Jaden was out. This is in the playoffs. He was all over Jamal Murray, and he still scored. Because, good offense beats good defense. But and even in the regular season this year, Cat was out, and we played at Denver, and Rudy couldn't guard Jokic. Then they had Kyle Anderson, who couldn't guard him, and Naz couldn't guard him. And then last night, they all did a pretty nice job. Everyone's talking about Naz's defense. He's not always a great defensive post player. He will help out and block shots. But he played, he had a sequence there where Jokic missed like 2 bunnies right at the rim because Naz was right there. So it's hard to comprehend and grasp, but I'm enjoying it.
It felt also, too, like there was a stretch where I was like, is Denver aware of what this task is? And you would think after game 1, you're at home.
Yeah.
You've got the pride of it. And it was actually worse. And these first quarters have been an issue. And Malone has mentioned it. And now when you add all the stats in after last night, the stats weren't great going into this game for them offensively. But for a young team to have this switch where, I joked about, like, is Phoenix actually a lot better than we thought?
Right.
It doesn't happen in this sport like this. And last night started to make me think, like, I think anything is on the table for this team now.
Yeah.
And to see Denver's will just broken.
Yep.
And look, there's still some work to do. You got to get these guys 2 more times. I mean, we can throw all the cliches that you'd expect to go in, but I'll be shocked if in game 3 you don't see a level of intensity from Denver that is far beyond anything we've seen at the start of these 2 games, because that had to be like the wake-up call might be too late, but there has to be a wake-up call here for Denver.
You mean everybody on the bench throwing heat packs? Is that the kind of thing you're talking about? I just hope it doesn't.
Everything.
I hope it doesn't get dirty or physical, but I think you said towards the end of the regular season, I think you had a heart-to-heart with Bill, and you said, Denver meets Boston in the finals. Boston has no chance. Is that kind of what you said? Because I agree with you that Denver's the best team in the league, and until we beat them, the Timberwolves, then I'm going to say, Denver's the champ. But did you say that Denver would spank Boston in the finals? I thought I heard that.
Spank is not word for word what I said.
That's one syllable. It ends in a K sound. It's fun to say. Spank me, hurt me.
We'll save this for a life advice part if you want to get into this content. But that surprises me from you. My thing with Denver, when Boston lost the rematch in Denver, and both of those games were close, the one in Boston and the one in Denver, but I felt like my line on it was that Boston has this unsolvable problem in the way Denver closes versus the way that Boston closes. And that's why I would pick Denver.
Yeah, so, I agree. Yeah. I said before, I said we would beat Phoenix in 6 games, even though I thought it was an awful matchup based on the regular season. But I just said, hey, we have home court and we have the best defense in basketball. But the Denver thing, you know that if we would have beaten Phoenix in game 82 in Minnesota, we would have home court against Denver. And we lost that game. It wasn't even close. Denver has the home court, or did. And I just, I guess the only way to explain it is we have the best defense, but somehow we've gone up a notch in the playoffs. And I'm telling you, the refs are letting us play physical, and that's an advantage to the Wolves.
Yeah. Last night I don't feel like it was anything that was egregious. The Murray call that sent Malone off, that was a charge on Cat.
Absolutely, it was a charge.
Right.
Yeah, that was a charge.
That's going to happen over the course of the game.
Do you think Ant got fouled in game 1 on the forearm when he went up for the jumper? It was.
Ant doesn't get calls.
Now, why is that? Because he's so strong like LeBron, or what?
He doesn't flop.
Oh, yeah.
He complains. I mean, he's starting to really complain.
Oh, he's He's toned it down in the playoffs. In the regular season, he's not Luka, but he claps at the ref, automatic technical. He says, "Hey," every time he drives, and they've talked to him, to stop whining. But and I put pressure on him. I said before the playoffs, we're going to go as far as Ant takes us, and he's played better than I thought. He's played better than I thought he would in the playoffs. So his weakness, Ryan, I want to tell you a little something. And I looked up a stat just for you, a little research. He turns it over sometimes. Our team turns it over. That's one of our weaknesses is our sometimes our crunch time offense and our turnovers. So our defense, we always play pretty well. But Ant's jump shot is falling in the playoffs. I don't know if you know this. When Cat went down in the regular season, he had 6 straight games of over 30 points, playing marvelously. Then he went into a little funk. He had 4 games where he didn't hit a 3. He went 0 for 22 on 3-pointers at a stretch towards the end of the season. And he went in the gym and worked with his guy. And now he's hitting his jump shot. Here's my little stat I want to give you, because I don't think he's a pure shooter. He's not. He says that. He's worked on his jump shot. Now, we know there are athletic players in NBA history who are not great jump shooters, but they work on it. Dwayne Wade, LeBron James. So I'm going to say Ant, LeBron, and Dwayne Wade. One thing you can do with a shooter is look at their free throw percentage. That'll tell you how pure they are with their jump shot. Do you know what the career free throw percentages with Ant, LeBron, and Dwayne Wade are? This is what I looked up just for you.
I don't know, 78%.
For which guy?
Oh, I have to guess each guy. This is like Simmons
who
Sunday's
do you think
quiz.
has the number one career of those 3 guys? What's the order of free throw percentage?
Is it Wade?
Wade is second. His career is 76.5% on free throws. LeBron is third, 73.6. And Ant in his young career is 79.3, the number one free throw percentage of those 3 guys. He shot 83.6% this year from the free throw line. And Dwayne Wade and LeBron never shot that high in a season for free throws. Just a little tidbit there for pure shooting.
I love it. I hear scouts talk about free throw percentage all the time. Hey, you don't like his 3-point numbers. What did he do in college? Ant is one of those guys who are in college. And you're right. Like the pure shooting, it wasn't like just out of the lab. He was this amazing shooter. I wonder, when you watch Ant take over like this, does it remind you a bit like of, say, the first time you saw Steve Levy tossed a Nat Sound?
I mean, Levy, yeah. Please don't forget Carl Ravitch. That guy was underrated.
Agree.
You know what happened? I love this story, but I'm an NBA guy. Ravi, we're working together, and he gets baseball tonight. I go, "Hey, cool." He goes, "I'm an NBA guy." Ravi was an NBA guy, but you adapt and you embrace baseball because that's what they wanted him to do.
Did I ever
just
tell
remember
you
something? You're not a star, Ryan. Norby told you that. Just be humble. I'm just kidding. You can take that out. I just think it's so funny. It's so funny.
Yeah, I know. You and I have shared a few stories over the years. I love them all. Van Pelt's favorite Ravitch story that I told, because when I was in Boston, it was tough for us to get guests. And I know I've told this story before, but I'm going to share it with you. And I thought the world of Ravitch. And by the way, I don't say that past tense as if my opinion of him has changed. He's as solid as it gets. He's incredible, but he's a buttoned up guy. And it was real tough for us to get guests. He was a Boston guy. And so we're reaching out. We're like, "Hey, can we have Ravitch on?" And, we're like, "Well, we got Ravitch for 12 minutes today. The show's going to be awesome. Nowhere to go but up." And I ran into him at Fenway, I don't know, a couple weeks after that. And I'm still, real new, and I'm excited. I'm excited to follow up with Carl Ravitch in person. And I see him in the bowels of Fenway, and I walk up to him and I said, "Hey, thanks so much for the time." I go, "It's funny because people think you don't like the Red Sox, but you're from here. And it's just, it's you being so professional that you don't want to lean anyway." And he just looks at me as he keeps walking. He's like, "You keep telling him."
Yeah, he's funny. He told me a story once, which I find very hard to believe, that it was a playoff game. It might have been, I don't know if it was Larry Bird's rookie year, but early in his career. And he said to me, "Oh, we all knew where Larry lived. We'd see him mowing his lawn, Larry Bird mowing his lawn." And I remember it was a big playoff game, and my buddies and I wanted to give Larry a 6-pack of beer. So we went up there, and Dinah, answered the door and said, "He's sleeping right now, but I'll take that 6-pack for Larry." I don't know if that's true, but he said he acted like they just went up to the house and gave Larry Bird a 6-pack for the big playoff game for afterwards. The other thing I wanted to ask you, because I don't know this about you. So Ravi was a really good golfer, is a very good golfer. And of course, I loathe the sport, or whatever you want to call the activity. Do you golf? I don't see you as a golfer. And I wouldn't think you'd be very good because you're muscle bound, if we're being honest.
Picked it up again this past year, and out of the gates was shocked how well I had played.
Whoa.
I hadn't played in 20 years. And then I bought newer equipment, started messing with things, and then I got invited to play a couple nice courses. People wanted to see what I had, wanted to invite me out, wanted to be social, potential membership opportunities, and every time I played, it's been a disaster.
Oh yeah,
so yeah.
Well, I
tore my calf a month ago, so I haven't played in a month. Yeah.
Oh, that's your bread and butter. Your calf. Yeah.
They're good calves.
I wanted to say something about injuries. So Finchie has the torn patella, and he's playing hurt. He ices it all the time when he's not coaching, and he's in pain, and you're supposed to rest it. So I was hearing some of the players talk. Like Cat goes, "Man, I just had surgery. His is major. I can't believe he's just showing up for the game and coaching. It's just really inspirational." So a shout out to Finchie for playing hurt, but also he really coached the team this year hard, and so did the staff. And my favorite thing was after the Charlotte game at home, when Cat was chasing 70 points and we lost, we had a big 18-point lead and we lost. Finchie after the game said that was a disgusting performance. And I love that he was so honest. It's one of those things where I joke, but I want to see him pull a Popovich and sub out the starting 5 in the first few minutes if we're sluggish, that dramatic move that Pop does when he subs out the whole starting 5. But Finchie, I think he finished 3rd in Coach of the Year, and he's doing a hell of a job.
I'm glad you brought him up, because I think there's a few things that I want to touch on that we've talked about, like in a basketball sense in Minnesota, is that them being a young team, that's not always a great recipe for somebody that wants to coach you hard. And as long as Ant is cool with it, then everybody else has to be cool with it. And Cat has not been my favorite player, despite the skill set. But I think him being out, a bunch of great things happened. One, it kind of took Ant to another level of knowing there's going to be these moments where it's only me offensively, and how am I going to respond? And so far, I was even worried about the playoffs a little bit. Are people going to load up on him so much? Going to force? Will he force the issue? Will he be like some of these younger guys that are dynamic players? Be like, well, I guess I'll just take 15 awful shots on top of the normal 15 I take. And Ant already has figured that part out, which is incredible. But I also think with Cat being out and the team still playing well, and then Nas taking on this role, where I'd agree with you. I never looked at Nas as a defensive asset, but his help defense got a lot better. And if you can just move your feet with the challenge that's Jokic, although I'd imagine, depending on what happens here with Rudy, he's going to be back, so it shouldn't be an issue. It changes their assignments and all that kind of stuff. You're going to see him feeling like, well, I have to take my stuff to another level. And I also think it helped Cat realize, okay, while I was out, things didn't fall apart, and I have to put more effort into some of the other stuff. I would always look at Cat as a defensive deficit. The decision-making still is always going to drive me crazy, but the collective of what Cat is with this entire group back, that may have been this thing that happens with this team that is incredibly talented. The roster's got all of these different options now. I just think that time meant a lot more to the development of this team for them to be ready, because it felt like everybody kind of had to be more on board with their role, despite not necessarily doing anything deep into the playoffs before.
Yeah, a couple beautiful points. So Cat is polarizing. People in Minnesota have an issue with him. He's an odd bird. He's a quirky guy. It's in interviews. I watched, last night, I know he's an offensive savant, but he always reaches and he picks up silly ass fouls. And I even last night, he He plays Jokic, but he's slapping down at the ball, and he's going to get called for it. And he did in the second half. He got a couple silly fouls, and I kind of just know who Cat is, so I know he's going to be infuriating. I mean, somebody wrote last night, there was a tweet from Britt Robson where it was in the second half. Cat got the ball at the top of the key, and he was holding it, and then he tried to drive, and then he turned it over. And Britt wrote something to the effect that he always wants to do too much, and it haunts him. I love when he said it haunts him. So he's going to be that inconsistent guy. Now, when he's on, I go a little crazy with his soft shot, and he can score driving. The thing he can't do, which I pointed out to some people, is he can't do 3 dribbles and a pull-up jumper. He can't do what Kevin Durant or Brandon Ingram does. He can't even back down and shoot a jumper like Jokic does. He either shoots spot-up shooting or it's the freight train to the rim, and that's where the offensive fouls happen. So he's a very unique player. He is infuriating. Now, you said something about Ant, and the whole thing that they wanted Ant to figure out is when you get double-teamed, give it up, and you'll get the ball back. So Mike Conley and Finchie are saying they're blitzing you, they're trapping you, give it up. You can cut to the rim and we'll find you, or they'll go off the double team and we'll give it right back to you. So I call it the floor game. What kind of decision making are you doing there? He has to improve his floor game, and he has in the playoffs. He still, again, I'm a purist. He still might drive and try to do a cross court pass that's intercepted, but he's 22, and it's just he's playing at a level that I didn't know he would play at. I mean, it's a little ridiculous because he does things in the regular season that I know are not sustainable. He'll have a 3-minute stretch like at the end of the Pacer game in Indiana. He made 3 shots in a row, and then he made the big block on the backboard where he hit his head. You can't play that way for 48 minutes. He was like really intense. He did that at the end of the game at home early in the season against Boston. He made 3 shots in a row, and then he D'd up Jason Tatum. And he got in his shorts. And it's like, okay, you can't do that. But he is, he's better than I thought. He keeps improving, and he loves Finchie, and he wants to be coached hard, and he listens to everything Finchie says. So I love these. Ryan, these people are saying, some of these reporters, he's gonna leave for a bigger market. No, he's not. He just bought a house, and you know what I'm saying? KG stayed there, Ant's staying there,
Yeah, look, I was guilty of it when I was really worried about the lack of future flexibility with Rudy transaction last year. I'm like, okay, so wait a minute, now you've done all this, and then the way it works with stars, but it still is the rookie contract. It's still the 7 years. So, now that's all put to bed, and it seems like his personality is so pure, right? And it's so genuine at this point that you're like, well, so far every indicator of based on like who he is as a guy, and the fact that this team is ahead of schedule and that he's ahead of schedule, like, let's not even worry about that. I didn't feel bad about suggesting it last year when I'm going, okay, still do the rookie extension and all this different stuff. But now this team is so far beyond what I thought when I watched them last year. And it's not just him, although he has a huge part of kind of raising their floor. So when I think of his interviews, there are a lot of athletes that I will pass on now. And I remember having that epiphany at ESPN Radio where it was like, hey, we can get, I don't know. I don't want to name an athlete because it's going to make like I'm calling them out or whatever. But
Gilbert Arenas.
Although we'll take Gilbert. We'll take Gilbert again. We have some follow-ups for Gil. Ant's interviews are just incredible. Every time I'm like, I wonder what he's going to say that's going to make me like him even more if that's possible.
I know.
Give me some Ant reaction and then pivot that into your favorite athlete that you've ever interviewed. There had to be a few people that you actually were like, okay, this person gets it in a format where athletes don't always shine.
Trying to think. I do have an Ant story for you, but let me just think. Because I typically...
I double-barreled you there, which I'm not.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I can handle it. I'm ambidextrous or amphibious, whatever you want me to say there. I typically like talking to coaches and broadcasters more, the Iron Eagles and stuff. And But I remember I had Reggie Miller on the show. I had a lot of NBA guys on the show. Reggie was great because I gave him a 5-question, and I said how many seams on a basketball, and I think he had it wrong. And I said there's a ball right over there on our set. And he goes, I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to cheat. And I go, that's why you never won a championship. So I was giving him crap about not winning a championship. I don't know which NBA player, but I will tell you a quick Ant story. I think you'll get a kick out of this. Wolves were in L.A. for a couple games with the Clippers and the Lakers, and they had a layover before they went to Utah. So they had a couple days off, and I went to practice. Finchie said, yeah, come by practice. And after practice, I was talking to Finchie. I did a couple jokes. The players are shooting around. I said, can I go talk to Slow-Mo and get that hitch out of his shot? And he says, good luck with that. Slow-Mo has a hitch in his shot. And then he said, hey, have you ever met Ant? And I said, no. So he was going to call Ant over. And I said, Finchie, at the end of his life, Joe DiMaggio insisted that he be introduced as the greatest living Yankee. So Finchie goes, how do you want to be introduced? So now I'm just laughing hard because he's got a million things on his mind. He's coaching this team. He had just missed a game in Cleveland. He's under the weather. And he's now asking me how I want to be introduced to Ant. And I said, well, I did late night. I like natural host, and it was just silly. And then, so Ant comes over and Finchie says, this is Craig Kilborn. He's one of the original ESPN anchors on SportsCenter. And he finished, and I look at Ant and I said, I'm a legend. And then Ant laughed and we took a picture. And then I said, keep working on your game. Try not to turn the ball over. And he goes, nice to meet you, sir. And I said, you don't have to call me sir. So that was that. And I said to Finchie, is it okay? I told him not to turn the ball over. And Finchie goes, everyone else is telling him the same thing. So it was fun going over the introduction. It's so silly. Anyways.
Yeah, but I like it. So when you are in attendance, we see you courtside. How does that work out? Are there people? Is there an ask? Is it understood?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I have a dear friend named Charlie Swanson, and he's a great guy. Minnesota people, Minnesota nice is real. And Charlie's a very successful guy. First, I went to the Phoenix games. The first 2, I took my brother, and Charlie has 4 courtside seats. He might even have a couple more for the playoffs this year. But he picked us up in a Maybach, a nice brand new white Maybach. So he's a car guy. He has a Lexus dealerships, 2 of them in Minnesota that are very successful. And he grew up in Minnesota. And he's my buddy. And we go bar hopping, and we go out for dinner. And he doesn't know this, but I'm going to give him a gift. Princess Cherry, we're going to make him a custom-made suit, and we're going to give him a suit. But so he has 4 courtside seats, and we're right next to A-Rod and Mark Lowry in Minnesota.
Incredible pivot. I know you're not a confrontational person. I know that's your nature. And
above the fray.
Yeah. Look, I haven't seen you make one public statement on Kendrick or Drake, so I think that plays.
Were there any F-bombs? I haven't watched the roast yet of Tom Brady. Any F-bombs in that? Would it be okay for me or not?
I'm trying not to swear in this, so I don't know that you would like all of it. It just, roasts seem mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever signed up for one?
No, I was asked years ago to host one. It was for William Shatner. It was right after I left the show in 2004, but I'm not into roasts. It's a little too hardcore. I like different kind of comedy. I like Frasier, a little more erudite, the sitcom Frasier.
Like, if you guys want to roast Frasier, I'm your guy.
What does that mean?
Well, I don't know. I just don't see you as a roast person. You wouldn't like it. It's mean spirited. It is.
There's a lot of bitterness in the world, and my beautiful face exacerbates it. Okay, so wait, where were you going? You were just going to ask me something. What was it?
About confrontation, because you sit near A-Rod.
Oh yeah, no. A-Rod and Mark Lowry, they're very nice people. I don't know how it's going to unfold.
That's what I mean. Do you have to take a side?
I don't have to. It's kind of like the team. We're just concentrating on basketball. Glenn Taylor is great. He kept the team in Minnesota. You know you know what bothers me is, he hired David Kahn, but I heard that David Stern talked him into hiring David Kahn, which was a complete debacle. But as far as A-Rod and Mark Lowry, they hired Tim Connolly. And Connolly made the Rudy trade, and that I think you and Bill were very supportive of. I can't remember.
We were not. No. I don't know if after game 2 is the time to get on our case about it.
No. Yeah. Well, but I do want to ask you guys, where you have to be opinionated in the job that you do. Are you ever fearful of being wrong, or you just say, the hell with it, I'm going to be wrong on things, and that's the way it is? And then you just say, hey, I was wrong. Congrats.
There's magnitudes of being wrong, but with this one, I feel like the price, I would never say, yeah, that was an awesome price. That was an awesome price to pay for Rudy Gobert, who felt like he was declining at the time. So people can I'll just Nick Saban you. Stop asking me. Like, I'm never going to like the price. By the way,
you're right. Yeah. It is a thing where it was a lot of picks. We got to keep Jaden McDaniels, but it was a lot of first-round picks. But, they say we're a young team. I can't remember how old he is. If he's
32?
32, I think.
I don't know. I'm guessing.
And Mike Conley's 36. And we seem to so that's an older group. We don't know how long they're going to play well at a high level. It seems, I don't want to go out on a limb here, it seems that the Conley trade, I think he's got better chemistry than D'Lo.
I remember when I, doing a little it was like, hey, what do you think is going to happen there? Because I couldn't stand watching it anymore because it was so obvious that D'Angelo Russell was like, wait, what? And
is he the weirdest guy?
Well, his game is strange. And some days when it's working, it's shot making and it's pace. And then other days,
he likes to shoot threes. He likes to pull up.
Sonic must be his favorite restaurant. Just pull right up. So you can use that if you get back in a late night. When I think about you in attendance as Minnesota's favorite son, like it's about basketball. You don't have to worry about it. There's never anyone trying to pull you one way or the other to take a public side. Right?
No, I don't.
They know better.
Yeah. I don't participate in that. There's not a lot of pressure. Like, I didn't get my 8 hours last night of sleep, and I just you don't have to do anything. You just have to. It's like, we go to the Phoenix game. The first game we won by 25. Took my brother, but prior to the game, I said, we don't have to do anything except if we lose, we have to have fun at Maison Margaux, which is this wonderful French restaurant that we're going to have dinner after the game. It was a 2:30 afternoon game. Life is easy, and you just enjoy it. I could ask you a J.J. McCarthy question and with the Vikings, but I'll do that another time. I don't know how good he is. I can't wait to see.
Let's table it.
What's that?
I said, yeah, let's table it.
Yeah. But we're playing very well. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But we played well against OKC. I think they're going to beat Dallas, I'd assume. I'll tell you one thing about OKC, because you watch this stuff. So Shea is really gifted at drawing fouls where he'll drive, initiate the contact, and then snap his head back and draw a foul. But I hope they let us continue to play physical as I jump ahead. So it's either going to be OKC or Boston. Whoever wins this series between Denver and Minnesota, I think they're going to have to play OKC, and if they advance, it's going to be Boston. I don't see the Knicks as thrilling as they are to watch. I don't see them beating Boston. So jumping around for you there, Ryan.
Yeah, you really rushed ahead. I'd say this about the SGA stuff. Like, you want to find some fouls in there that you're not going to like that are called. I would agree with you. They're going to be in there. But when the majority of his foul hunting is on the up fake, and if you go up, that's on you to be disciplined. And you would think over the course of the series, the perimeter guys can be a little bit more disciplined, being like, I'd rather give him the pull up from 10 feet than trying to contest all this stuff in the air, because there's a lot of baiting. There's the head snapping back stuff, on the drives. I don't like any of it, but it's not all that with him. There are some old school traditional get you up.
He's effortless. He gets shots off. He handles the ball well. He shoots a good percentage. He's good. And we are jumping ahead. Oh, I wanted to tell you something about the Wolves, because I watched them all through the season. So their weaknesses were turnovers because Jaden McDaniels and these guys, they're not all great passers or ball handlers. And, Cat and Ant will turn the ball over. So I think we had 12 last night, which to me is the max you should have. And that's been a problem. And our offense sometimes is clunky and not as effective in crunch time. Now, it's not a problem so far in the playoffs. We're playing at a higher level. And you said something earlier, which I wanted to echo. I said to people prior to the series, in crunch time, you have to give the advantage to Denver because Jokic, they're always going to get a good shot. You've got Jokic who can score or make the pass, and Jamal Murray is clutch. And I said, if we can win by 8 or more, we'll be okay. But if it's a 1 or 2 point game, you got to give the edge to Denver. Thank God we're not in that situation. The games have not been too close. The first game was a 7-point win for the Wolves. There's one other thing I wanted to say about the Wolves. In the regular season, some of us, hardcore fans, we felt like, because of our offense, we felt like we needed a third scorer. We said we might, we're good this year, but we might need in the offseason to add a third scorer because Mike Conley doesn't always score 12 or 14, and Jaden, you can see, is inconsistent, and Naw is inconsistent. Nas is pretty consistent off the bench. It's kind of weird that we're saying that, and we're not having an issue right now in the playoffs with our offense.
Completely agree. It was my major concern with them, and I didn't know how that was just going to be solved at the playoff level. But I think what we're learning here, if they're going to play this kind of defense, I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah, that's what And these guys are, Naw had 18 in the first game against Phoenix, and he has that jump shot. He's not a pure shooter, obviously, but his form is a little like Gervin's, where he's over there and he shoots a really high arc. He's a fun player. Do you know we got him in the Mike Conley trade? They threw him in when we traded away D'Lo. We got Conley and Naw.
That was the trade. I mean, the Rudy trade, we've already covered a million different times, and it just gets audited over and over and over again. And it's not fair. I was kidding about him not being there last night, but I was sort of expecting somebody like, oh, still don't like the trade. And be like, he didn't play. Because it's just every time they win and kind of raise what our expectations of Bill and I get just inundated with Minnesota fans that are just so mad, which I'll never quite understand. I can't imagine a young Kilborn being like, hey, my team just won. Where should I spend my energy immediately? I know what I should do. But it's just the way it works. So
you're talking about,
sorry.
Wait,
right. I swore there. I apologize.
No, you're talking about Rudy missing the game? Because I have a comment on that.
I know you do. And that's where I want to finish. But it's, even if I don't like the trade, like, you can't look at last night and go, hey,
yeah,
they didn't have them. But I do think it speaks to like just how insane these perimeter defenders too, on top of everything else.
Yeah, I think last night was an odd game that maybe couldn't be duplicated without Rudy. I thought they were, they single cover Jokic because they don't want him passing out to the 3-point shooters. It's like, when Kobe would score 40 and they would lose. So, but I thought they would occasionally trap Jokic to throw him off. So single coverage mostly, and then bring a double sometimes just to throw him off, keep him off balance. What I was going to tell you is people say, I was very disappointed that Rudy missed the game, and he was going to take a private plane, but it was windy. But you have two types of players, Ryan. You have the players that they don't want to miss the birth of their child, and then you have the other guy who says, I'm going to be a loving father, but I'm going to miss the birth of my child because I want to win a championship. I respect Rudy, and I really respect the guys that miss the birth of their child and want to play in the game. So I respect and really respect. A little bit of it.
Ted Williams would have been your guy. All right, let's close with this. I did it for a little while, then I just stopped doing it. I've always given you credit for it. It was kind of paying tribute to my guy Kilborn here. Let's end with 5 questions for you.
This is the sneaker I'll be wearing at games 3 and 4. This is a 1-star. It's from 1974. They still make them. This is a suede. That's Timberwolves green. Okay.
Terrific. You should talk to them about the uniform, by the way, moving forward. All right. Okay, here we go. First one. When I asked you about your financial situation the first time we sat down, was that one of the weirdest questions anyone's ever asked you in an interview?
I don't know. One of the weirdest. That's fine. I guess people are curious. How does a bon vivant retire at 42? Uh, I live off the 10% commission I don't pay. No, I live off I don't even touch my ESPN money. I live off my 5 questions money. There was a 5 questions book. It's very big in Europe.
I didn't mean to ask it all over again. It was just
Oh,
people were like, "What's this deal again?" And then I just was like, "I guess I'll ask the question everybody always wants the answer to." And
yeah,
then you just looked at me and you were like, What are you asking? Where's my money?"
right.
And it was just sort of awkward. But obviously,
Late night
it's
pays well, and if you're not extravagant and you don't waste money, it's an easy life.
okay. All right. Uh, this is sort of open to your interpretation. But how jealous was I of your post of you and Robert Evans hanging out in L.A. early 2000s? How
Yeah,
jealous was I?
very jealous. It is fascinating. I know we've talked about this. You saw The Offer, that series on the making of The Godfather, correct, with Miles Teller?
I would say 2 episodes in, I bought Bob's book,
Okay.
read his book immediately, and kinda told myself, I don't know that I ever wanna write one.
Oh, yeah.
He made me wanna just like, "Hey, this is unobtainable what you just read, but do more stuff."
Yeah. You got the audiobook.
No, I read it.
Oh,
I love
because
him. I love him.
he narrates it. You bet your ass I was. He does all these. Was I jealous? You bet your ass.
I remember when he's
Anyways,
explaining to, like, one of his friends on the other side of the law, where they were trying to figure out what was going on with his wife, and she was with Steve McQueen, and
yeah.
he's devastated. And they were like, "Well, let's have somebody go talk to him," because Evans had a lot of friends with connections.
Oh,
And Bob says to this guy, and he's like, "Well, just so you know, he's like a black belt or something." And the mob guy goes, "Bob, he's a fucking actor."
that's funny. I mean, the guy is a character. He was such a character. And I tell people, the actor, Matthew Good, who played him in The Offer, nailed him. And all I can say is every line Matthew Good said was entertaining. So Bob is entertaining, but not every line is a gem. But it's pretty close. He was. We had dinner a number of times. I was in his screening room watching The Kid Stays in the Picture. Yeah, one of a kind. One of a kind.
I was so jealous. I was like, I got out of here too late. And I would say Matthew Good, we tried to get him on this show numerous times. And I don't think he was even nominated for an Emmy for Best Supporting Actor.
I know.
He was so good. And Miles, who I've always loved and got to know a little bit, he had to play it straight for his role. Matthew Good scenes were like Tom and Greg scenes in Succession, where I was like, I could just watch those on an endless loop because
Right.
of how good he was at playing Evans. All right, number 3, actually, 3 of these to go. Are you still at a text level friendship with Kylie Minogue?
No, I did interview her. No texting. No texting with Kylie Minogue.
All right, number 4. Has A-Rod asked you to stay with him for playoff games?
No, he is not. And that's comforting for me because Kilby likes his space. I like my space.
We're alike in that sense. Okay, last one. Speaking of real estate, with this Minnesota run, with Ant in play, and I know you like your farmers markets. You like to get out to Montecito, but is there ever a Zillow search in the greater metropolitan area where you're like, give me Minnesota's version of Simsbury?
No, but there's a place. So Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities. St. Paul is the older city. It's where F. Scott Fitzgerald grew up on Summit Avenue. They have a bunch of beautiful old homes. So whenever I go back, I go to Summit Avenue and look at some of them were built in the 1890s. Uh, I like visiting Minnesota. Means a lot to me. Happy I grew up there. But no, I romanticize about Northern California. I live in LA, but I'd like to visit, as you know, Carmel by the Sea.
That's great. You can get more from Craig Kilborn, the Life Gorgeous podcast. It's also up on YouTube, and I would be happy to repay the favor anytime you need it, my man.
Thank you. A Life Gorgeous podcast. And my favorite thing creatively remains my Instagram, where I celebrate my deep breathing at French bistros and bonding with chilled martinis. So the Instagram is still my favorite thing. And I also do the podcast, Life Gorgeous. You're the man, brother.
Always good to see you.
Thank you, sir.